And welcome in, everybody. It is Dynasty Mode, the unofficial EA Sports college football game podcast. My name is Arky. Shea, no longer yelling in this broadcast form. Beside me, in front of me, and really always inside me, my heart, that is, my friend Demetri. Ravanos. Demetri, welcome.
I was told this was purely physical, Arky, Shea.
It is always physical. We're talking about the joysticks, Joe.
There you go.
Get them thumbs operational, brother. That's what I'm talking about.
I believe they are called Joy-Cons in the edition of the consoles we are talking about.
That is, you know what? My fault. That's on me.
No, listen, you got to speak the lingo or people will spot a phony, Arky.
That is true. And I am a phony, a big, fat phony. Okay, so on the heels of that, we got a pretty interesting show here today. We're going to deviate from the plan a little bit because some news came up that I think is fascinating for the future of the college football video game that we're talking about. But I did want to mention that doing some rearranging. You're going to see the background in the podcast look a little different soon because we're moving studios. But I've been setting up a new studio, and this studio I've been setting up my my emulator for NCAA 14 because it's still the last one we got. You don't really have Xbox emulators, at least as far as good ones that I can find so far. So the PS3 ones, I'm connecting with an Xbox controller, and man, howdy, that is a chore, right? You can connect it, but it's still kind of confusing with the eyes on the screen. So, I was playing with that the last couple of nights, and yeah, it's I'm running a lot of draws that I didn't think I was going to be drawing.
Well, a couple of things stand out to me. Number one, I like how much more, I guess, invested you want the listeners to be, especially the ones that watch on YouTube, because I just fucking record wherever I am. I don't care what you people notice in the background. But
right.
But yeah, you talked about running the emulators. I probably for the first time in a couple of weeks went back down to my basement, fired up the old PS3, forgot that I'm currently the head coach of SMU. Man, just a barn burner against Cincinnati on the road this weekend.
You know what's great about the game is and I have not, I'll be honest with you, played a full game in a while. I sort of give it a rest since, I get into 2K a little bit and I'm
sure.
Listen, it wasn't until this podcast idea came up that I started dabbling around a little bit. And then so I got onto the emulator and I set it up on this current studio computer. Now it's on a different one that I was just referencing. You start playing around with it a little bit. You're like, man, I see how I get so freaking addicted to this, man. It's a lot of freaking fun, man. I have missed it.
And once you get into a dynasty mode, I guess there are times this can be a problem and times that it really I want to see what's in Sports Illustrated this week. It's very easy to lose 2 hours to this game and have only played a game.
Oh, yeah. And I think that's what's so great about the immersive experience that we've been sort of talking about. We hope that EA comes out with the new game, and as far as at least trying to build onto it. We're going to talk about that, in the future with this game, because that's what this podcast is about. And I'm really proud of the emulator to tell you that A, I've been playing it a little bit more, and B, that the interesting thing for me is that we're building onto the content of this podcast. We, when we recorded this last week, we got up to 102 subscribers.
Yeah.
And I set that up. We crossed while we were recording, we crossed over the 100 subscribers. And that may not seem like a lot to a lot of people. We had no effing idea people were going to be paying attention to this, right?
Yeah. I mean, I told you when we started, I thought that the potential audience was small, but I thought they would be dedicated. But that being said, I didn't know that we would be at 100 this quickly. And I don't think if you've never done a podcast, or if you have done a podcast and not really looked into it professionally, you don't get how few podcasts get to 100 subscribers. It's crazy. The top 0.1% have, hundreds of thousands. And then right below that, the next significant percentage point is 10,
Yeah. And that's why I encourage you to thank you or to continue watching. And I want to thank you for all of this. Now, not you, Demetri, the fan. Demetri, you're here every week. It doesn't matter.
No, that's true.
So the news I wanted to talk about that came out right after we were recording last week is that apparently EA Sports is looking to merge and get into that little, what we like to call greater market share idea, right?
Arky, could I assume they want to be out of the game?
Well, so I don't know. Like, I don't know if EA specifically want to be out of the game. I don't know if they want to dissolve the franchise, so to speak. But I do think that there is a fascinating sort of potential tale here to be told about what EA and obviously EA Sports inside that umbrella might be able to sort of tell us. And I thought, I wanted to talk about what this could mean. But first, I wanted to sort of lay out what we're talking about, if you don't mind. If you just give me a minute, I'll give you a brief map of what we're talking about. That way you can kind of see where there's some movement. And we're not necessarily trying to predict what the movement would be, but if certain synergies connect,
right,
what could be interesting and advantageous for the EA franchise and the college football franchise going forward.
So before you dive in with everything, just so the listeners know, some of this is fact. Like Arky's going to talk about a potential merger with NBC. That is fact. That did go down the road before it fell apart. Some of it is rumor, some of it is speculation, and some of that rumor is not coming from message boards, right? It's not coming from people like me and Arky. It is coming from people that do the whole Sun Valley retreat, where the billionaires get together and set the tone for the world. And one of the hot rumors that has been circulating this year there has to do with EA Sports. And it's interesting. You mentioned the synergies that come about. I think one of the things that you have to remember here, as we talk about some of the interested entities in this, and Arky, I'll let you go through the details in just a second, is that Electronic Arts is its own studio, right? Like Electronic Arts has the contract to make the Star Wars games, for instance. Certainly, there are plenty of entertainment entities that would love to have an in-house video game production studio. So with that, I'll let you walk through what we know. But I did kind of want to set that up. Like there is, for people that only know EA from EA Sports, like don't lose sight of the fact that this is a valuable studio to a lot of different companies.
Oh, it really, really, really is. I mean, we're talking tens and tens of billions of dollars, the value of what EA is at this point. And you got to also remember that EA, its studio itself that it owns, like it owns a lot of smaller studios that sort of work on other games. So EA doesn't necessarily just work on every single game individually, right? And we're going to sort of address some of that going forward. I do want to mention this episode is brought to you by Paper and Pen, which I've used to write down some of these notes. Because keeping track of this is kind of it's into the weeds. It's really into the weeds when it comes to like business talk, right? So I want to kind of just sort of walk you down the road. Now, this all essentially came from an article from puck.com, which I did not know existed, but it's into this field, and it's been around. The website's been around for about a year, apparently. I did some research and digging into it. So the sources there say that Brian Roberts had been trying to do a little buying. Now, Brian Roberts is the chairperson of Comcast. Comcast owns NBC Universal, which is, like the Peacock, right? The Peacock network, right? Yep. Or streaming service, I should say.
Right. And also NBC.
Yeah. And, the actual big peacock bird. Right. They own 7 to 10 birds as well as a TV network.
I do like the idea that $1 billion business can only afford about 7 to 10 birds.
Well, you don't want to overdo it, right?
Well, sure. No. That's fair. Like this might not be a can we afford. This might be a do we need situation.
Exactly. Like, sure, there are like hundreds of pandas out there, but like, let's spread them out. Like, not everybody needs them. Maybe some deserve to be in their own habitat, called the wild.
Right. Fair. Okay. Fair.
Okay. So Brian Roberts is the chairperson of Comcast, which is Comcast Cable, NBC Universal, and recently Sky Network. Okay. So keep that name in mind. That's what Brian Roberts is doing. Andrew Wilson is the CEO of EA, and that's who we'll be talking about in just a moment. So these will be the two main entities. But Brian Roberts wants to increase the market share of Comcast, increase the value, because what he has seen happen, he has seen Disney buy Fox for $71 billion. By the way, that's
something,
a lot.
It's something, by the way, NBC Universal lost out on. They really wanted to acquire Fox. Like, that was who Disney's chief competition was.
Right. In fact, Brian Roberts found out about Bob Iger, who is the head of Disney, about his first offer, which was, I think it was $53 billion.
Right.
With all stock options, space or all stock, countered with a $65 billion all cash option, to where Disney had to come back with a $71 billion option. Say, all right, this is cash and some stock. And then Brian Roberts of NBC Universal backed out. So he misses out on misses out on Fox, which is a property he was interested in. Misses out on Warner Media, which is Warner Brothers and AT&T, Discovery ended up merging with them for over $40 billion. Right. And now he starts to see that some of these big time possible acquisitions and or mergers that could be made start to go away. You start losing the ability to make a significant impact on what could help things like NBC's Peacock network, which apparently is struggling, or at least lagging behind when it comes to the numbers that they would like, especially since.
So wait a minute, you're telling me your entire selling point being you can stream old episodes of The Office is not working out as planned?
Well, can you get the Community on there too? Maybe, but yeah, you can. I think you can. So you can get. By the way,
I mean, yeah, but Community is also on Hulu and Netflix.
Okay, fair enough. So I do think that that's interesting to pay attention to, because I only have Peacock for The Office, to be fair. So,
yep.
Now, there's been an interest in sort of gaming and getting into gaming rights, because that's, again, another large market share idea, right? In fact, somewhat recently, Microsoft just brought Activision Blizzard for $69 billion. Nice, by the way. And Activision Blizzard that's the Call of Duty people, right? That's sort of their big franchise that you're talking about. And so you sort of see the winds of possible big time giant splashes that this guy can make, Brian Roberts, that is, start to go away. So Brian Roberts goes to Andrew Wilson, who we mentioned is the head of EA, and starts to propose an idea, which is, what if NBC Universal, part of Comcast, spins off from Comcast and merges with EA Sport, or the EA, which would also include EA Sports. Now, they started negotiating, and that got several weeks down the road. In fact, only broke down in the last month. And in fact, not only has Andrew Wilson sort of been in discussion with Brian Roberts, apparently EA Sports has been a little hot to try to do a little merging of their own. Right. And they've spoken to Amazon, to Disney, and to Apple as well, because Apple seems a little interested to build upon, what is currently like their arcade gaming mode they have right now, and maybe end up building more market share there. And so that's what I think is an interesting sort of to set the bed for what we're talking about here over the next few minutes.
So let's put EA Sports on the shelf for a second. These are some of the franchises that I'm glad you mentioned Apple, because that's exactly right. For Apple, this is about their subscription arcade mode. Amazon's got one as well. This is what they're looking at. They're looking at the Harry Potter license for games. They are looking at the Star Wars license for games. They're looking.
I don't see a lot of value there so far.
No, so far, these are flashes in the pan. They have the license for The Simpsons, although I believe that is lapsed. I don't think there's been a new Simpsons game in a while, but they've got Need for Speed. They've got Medal of Honor. If you want to go simply with mobile-based games, they've got Bejeweled. They've got The Sims. And look, I mean, if you're thinking, The Sims, I remember that from when I was blah, blah, blah. My 12-year-old daughter still plays it all the time.
Sims is still huge. Huge.
I mean, this is a very valuable property, not to mention when you bring EA Sports onto the table, Like, look, this podcast is about NCAA football. We want to know what's going to happen to the future of that game. But let's cut to the chase. You're talking about Madden, and you're talking about whatever FIFA is going to become. I think EAFC is the leader in the clubhouse for the new name. But those are the economic drivers of the EA Sports brand. So there is a lot of value here for whoever might want to go down the road with EA.
Oh, tremendous point that you make there, because what happens is that if you consider let's just say, for example, what NCAA football is probably going to make just on the initial sale of the game when it comes back.
Yeah.
If you market it at, let's just say, $70, which probably sounds about right, they're going to sell the top end, which has ever been sold by EA Sports when it comes EA Sports when it comes to the NCAA football game. It's just under $3 million.
Yeah,
that's the top end of what they've ever gotten. You got to imagine, I would at least, in the absence of that game, you're going to be really close to that number, or or at least maybe even a little bit over that number, just from the heart, wants what it wants because it hasn't had it in forever. So in that case, you're talking well over $200 million off the launch of one game, without all of these very much hated downloadable contents and extra subscriptions that people loathe about EA. But that's just a $200 million from that one franchise. That just to give you an idea of the scale of what we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, look, to that point of, one game, and a game that, by the way, is not even considered a major seller, can generate $200 million. And you talked about the downloadable content. This is the reason that that the video game industry has surpassed Hollywood in terms of revenue generation. Like, it absolutely has, because one game, the way these companies have set up to, just screw us now. It's not about going to see the movie the second time. It's not about, you love the game, so you buy a copy for a friend as a gift. It's about, you've spent $70 already. Now, how many times can we get you to spend another 10? And that is why, you look at NBC Universal. It's why they got so far down the road. It is why, as Arky just mentioned, we're not just talking about studios looking to acquire EA Sports. We are talking about EA Sports kicking around the idea of acquiring some other properties themselves, one of which your jaw is about to drop when Arky throws this out there. Well, if you have not already heard.
Well, no, how about Demetri? How about you drop a jaw real quick? How about that?
All right. So we alluded to the rumor coming out of the Sun Valley Conference about what EA might be cooking up.
Again, video game, immediately think of the members of the Sun Valley Conference, and trying to.
That's right. I mean, but if
that Bob Iger, that's.
I guess if you think about it, like, I mean, what's his name? Bill Gates did just buy the company that makes World of Warcraft, so it's not so far-fetched, right?
You're true.
All right.
You're true.
So coming out of the Sun Valley Conference, hey, by the way, everybody, remember to like and subscribe to the podcast. I just want to throw in a quick cliffhanger kind of thing for you. But you go whatever your podcast app is of choice. Not only subscribe, but rate us, review us. That is the way more people discover this show. Please, 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 if you like what we do, help us spread the word. That is the only way we get to keep doing this show. All right,
we have a handful of really cool ideas, but we do need to upscale this a little bit to be able to make them viable. So if you want to continue to see this grow and see really cool announcements come in the next several months, do us a favor. But go ahead.
Yeah, we're not going to start a Patreon page. We are just going to give out our bank account numbers and trust you to do the right thing. All right, so the rumor coming out of the Sun Valley Conference is that Bob Chapek has not been shy about the fact that he is not opposed to spinning off ESPN. It's not the plan right now, but if the right offer came along, he would not be opposed to spinning off ESPN. And the rumor is that an ESPN EA Sports merger has been discussed. Now, to me, this makes a lot of sense. If we're just talking about EA Sports, if we are talking about Electronic Arts, Disney owns The Simpsons. Disney owns Star Wars. Why would Disney not just buy the company? Why would they even think about spinning ESPN off to create a different company. Just acquire EA already.
Yeah, I mean, you would sort of think at some point Disney doesn't have all of the money, but so far they have not proved that.
I was about to say, so far, I would beg to differ.
Yes, so far it feels like an empty, a bottomless a pit of just $1 and $100 bills combined. You never quite know until you get the handful out. But yeah, so you're talking about Disney or ESPN, which is owned by Disney, which is why this is sort of an interesting sort of discussion. And obviously EA Sports, which is owned by EA, to sort of have a spin-off. But again, the spin-off to me, and I looked a lot into this because I was trying to figure out what's the positive aspect of like spinning off a corporation like this.
Yeah.
And usually it's if you have a product that's maybe struggling or could use its own individual attention and its own management structure. Sorry, I have a cough drop. That maybe.
Sorry,
maybe
I got to do
that. I'm like Nick Saban at the Regions before. I don't know if you saw that video. Pretty funny. So I don't know in this case what is technically a weak point with Electronic Arts, or besides the public opinion, by the way, of DLCs, or what is a weak point when it comes to EA Sports. Now, ESPN has lost some subscribers, and they continue to sort of lose some subscribers.
Yeah, but that's like a total bullshit measurement. Like all of cable is losing subscribers.
Well, I think you're 100% right. I just think that if you wanted to make that your argument, that there's a little bit of leakage in the ESPN boat, and let's be completely fair about ESPN, it's not the, I guess, it's not the crown jewel of Disney, right?
Yeah, that's
like that. I think that would be fair to say. So if you wanted to sort of coordinate off and make it specifically a sports-centric offshoot, I guess it kind of makes sense from a categorical standpoint. But I don't know financially why you wouldn't, like you say, why you wouldn't just, and maybe there are some business folks that know better than we, they could just chime into the comments at some point or DM us with our Twitter handles you see on the screen at Arky, Shea, and at Demetri Ravanos if you aren't on the YouTube.
Look, I think it makes sense from the standpoint of what is the biggest revenue driver in sports media right now? It's gambling, right? Mm-hmm. I think that there are ways that Fox and NBC take advantage of that ESPN cannot because it is under the Disney umbrella. Spinning it off from under the Disney umbrella eliminates that perception problem with advertisers.
Well, we can mention Disney has sort of had this perception problem before, whether it's one topic or the other that, folks, whether Disney says something about a particular group or supports a particular group or doesn't say something about a particular group, that there does tend to be like a little bit of blowback one way or the other more recently in the last probably handful of years than we've sort of seen before. Yeah. And I would assume that Disney and Mickey himself wouldn't want to sort of say, all right, Goofy, I'll give you.
He would really like he feels like there is billions, and I don't think he's wrong, but Bob Chapek has said before, he feels like there are billions of dollars. And I believe, if I remember right, he said $3 billion is what he thinks he could get for licensing the ESPN name to a sports book. But now, how do you do that under the Disney umbrella?
For those who don't know, who is Bob Chapek?
Bob Chapek took over for Bob Iger as the CEO of the Walt Disney Company. He's a little bit under fire. He doesn't really know how to run an entertainment company. He came from consumer products. So whether or not he still has that title, if we're having this conversation next year, I don't know. But as it stands right now, as we're talking about the potential for an EA ESPN merger, like this is the guy whose business sense we kind of have to, or I guess one of the two guys whose business sense we really have to pay attention to.
It is, because I think what's also fair to point out is that it seems as if EA is very interested in a near immediate move.
Yeah.
Right? Like they aren't looking to wait a long time and to sort of suss a ton of things out. Like they were literally just in negotiations with NBC Universal and sort of some structuring, whether or not, Andrew Wilson was going to be in charge of most of it, the CEO of EA Sports, which EA wanted, by the way. They wanted to keep Andrew Wilson in charge. Brian Roberts wanted he and his family to sort of stay in charge of the entity, and sort of some of that structuring, the story goes, was the kind of reason that negotiation sort of broke down. But it does show that EA is coming to the table ready to make deals and ready to do something if there's something in their immediate future that can sort of make a lot of sense. So, Demetri, unless you had anything else, I was ready to start spinning this forward.
No, let's spin this forward, because here is one of the questions I want to ask you. How much do you think that might be motivated by the time of year? Because you acquire EA Sports, you acquire the one and only officially licensed game of the NFL. The fact that they're coming out with a new college football game, I would tell you that I think ESPN is probably the potential target, suitor, whatever, that like the relationship with EA Sports is the most valuable to, right? Like there is no bigger media stakeholder in college football than ESPN. Certainly if you control or have a major hand guiding the direction of Madden, the direction of, like I said, we think it's going to be called EAFC. Like that's a big deal. And ESPN being an all sports company, if they do get spun off from Disney, like there's no company that should be pushing harder for being an acquisition or a merger with EA.
I think that's why that is, if you were to ask me, that's where the negotiation really starts.
Right.
Because if I'm EA, that discussion that I'm having with Disney, and that's the one that I want to have and to allow the most amount of time to sort of develop.
Right. And also, I mean, again, we go back to time of year. Like, how much sense did it make with NBC? Not only does NBC have the most watched broadcast each week from the NFL, but also they have the Premier League. And if you're losing the FIFA branding, wouldn't it be nice to then slot in the most watched league in the most watched sport in the world?
No, sure. Like ESPN, I think they have the World Cup coming up, so they have the coverage of that. So, like, I think all of that sort of, that's why we go back to this word synergy, sort of would make some sense. Like, not just from a logical standpoint. Like, obviously, ESPN's had their announcers in the college football video game before, right? But like ESPN is, I've used this example before. When I travel, when I go into a hotel room, the first channel I look for is ESPN.
Right.
It just doesn't matter. Just what number is that? Put it on the background, whatever. It doesn't even matter at this point. So, like, there is a lot of brand recognition, a lot of built-in price that's in there with that too. But also, I think a lot of people sort of assume ESPN sort of is with these games, a lot of these games anyway.
I mean, especially the college games, right? I mean, between Herb Street and Corso, and I mean, I guess at the time Nestler too, but between Herb Street and Corso, Game Day having a presence in college football. Remember the ill-fated March Madness, Dick Vitale, and I believe later on Jay Billis were both voices of the March Madness game. I mean, you're right. I think Ian Dark, who was the voice of maybe not the FIFA games, but the World Cup games, I think he was on the ESPN roster for a long time. It makes me wonder if these two companies combined, do you think we still have an EA Sports, or do you think it becomes like ESPN Digital or ESPN Gaming?
That is, boy, you know how much ESPN loves their letters on everything.
Right.
Well, they really, I would think EA, because there's, and I don't know how it goes with a lot of other people who play a lot of other games, right? So, but I know when I, play Madden, or not really that much anymore, or with college football, obviously.
Yeah.
Like for me, that it's in the game, like EA Sports, it's in the game. It's like a warm blanket. Right. So
yeah, it's your da-da-da.
There you go. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a lot of warmth. There's a lot of fuzzy blankets and throw pillows here that we could deal with ESPN and EA Sports. That I would be fascinated by that. I would think ESPN would just be okay with taking the money. You know what I mean? Like when I ESPN, but Disney will be okay with taking the money because they'll then have exclusive access to putting all of their talent wherever they want in the game, right?
Yep.
They don't really have to worry about a lot of the infrastructure of it. They're not building from the bottom. It's all there. You're all you got to do is to continue to invest in it and reap the rewards from it, and then use all of your talent, just like with what Disney does with bringing, with streaming all the Simpsons episodes or something like that. Like you have the content, just put it out there for people. Just bring the content, slide it over, and you're completely fine. And if you're better, you're more than fine. But like I feel like that there is a love for. Let me put it this way more accurately. I think there is a distaste more than a love, maybe for EA in this case, a distaste for when ESPN tries to go outside of what ESPN is kind of known for and is best at, which is really just producing games, right?
Right.
Like I think a lot goes off the rails there.
Are you speaking of ESPN Mobile?
That could be one of the things I mentioned. I think if you want to just sort of keep the goodwill and the value of the sports franchise that you're talking about, the EA Sports, I think you keep it. I don't think there's any way you need to change it.
Okay. I would love in the comments on any platform that we are on, I'd love to hear from somebody that signed up for ESPN's mobile phone service. I really would. So here is something college football game specific that I think would be a lot of fun. I want to see if ESPN is in bed with EA Sports in a way where like there is a formal, one entity owns the other relationship. I do, as we put esports on television, I do want an EA NCAA football league.
Okay. All right. Keep talking.
This might be my one and only chance to become a professional gamer. But I tell you, I have a son who is 10 years old, right in the heart of that age group that, for whatever reason, will watch other people play video games on YouTube. I can't say I wouldn't watch that. I can't say I wouldn't give it a whirl.
Okay. Yeah, we haven't seen the Demetri competing level of this, right? Like
right.
We've seen other people compete, not quite Demetri. So if that's what we're angling for,
I mean, we would all get cool. We would all get cool gamer names.
What are these not cool enough?
I mean, they all have names like Viper Strike and things like that. So we'd have to get extreme with our names.
Quantum Suck.
Okay, I like it.
I like that. I like it. Because
so.
Ooh,
that would be mine. That would be mine.
It's to the point. Like I get it.
Yeah. Who am I kidding?
I got mirrors. We're cool. So let me ask you this. Because you guys who are listening to this, I hope you're enjoying it. If not, thanks for indulging us for an episode. I think what's fascinating about this, besides obviously the fact that ESPN could be directly connected, besides just sort of the voices, is that we could see a full-scale integration of ESPN and sort of what we see with the college football experience.
Are you telling me you want a digital Big and Rich in the next game?
What I was going to say is there something you would not like to see fully integrated? Because obviously, like, you don't have like the college game day intro and the set and like the way it's set up where, there's a weekly game and like blah, blah, blah. Like, there's the national game of the week and the spotlight game, but like no one's on set kind of thing.
Right.
Is there something you would not want to see integrated from ESPN and its college football coverage into the game if this were to be sort of a merger that sort of takes place or an outright purchase, to be honest with you? Because it seems like EA is very interested in a merger or just being bought too. So
yeah, I mean, I can't think of anything because I'm all for whatever makes playing the game feel real, right? Like I'm all for whatever makes playing the game feel like it does on Saturday. I guess I don't want digitized Tom Rinaldi sob stories in the game, but other than that, I can't really.
Can you imagine
Yeah.
Can you just freaking imagine like the coming up with stories?
QB14. That's right. That's right. That's right. All of these generated position and numbered name guys that all were adopted from a foreign country, all of them born without fingers. But fortunately, they each and every one of them the first recipient of finger transplants known to man. And now here they are, Heisman Trophy candidate running backs.
Kicker number 9, born with a football for a toe.
Born with a football for a head, having to choose violence against his own kind in order to survive.
Oh, yeah. I think I would like so the college game day sort of game experience, right? Like I always thought the show is way too long, right? It's 3 hours. I'm not watching the 3 hours, but I think the intros for the games, especially for Dynasty mode, way too short. Way too short. So like let's indulge a little bit. Let's put like a 90-second, 2-minute thing together for each game. We can repeat a lot of the same mannerisms. I get it. Like you don't have to come out with something very special, or at least maybe something special for like the big games.
I want to throw an idea out to you of using one of ESPN's cousins here. You know how in the Marvel movies or the TV shows, there are these little Easter eggs, little illusions that if you've seen them all, you will go, oh my God, this is connected to that somehow, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would like to have hidden in the game, whether it is in the crowds at the stadium or whether it is in the crowd for college game day, I would love to have some classic vulgar game day signs show up.
Oh!
Specifically, I want the one that said penis, 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 penis with the ESPN highlighted. That to this day makes me laugh every time I see it.
You are 100 on point. Like, yes. I think this game. Okay, so we talk about features and stuff that we want constantly, right?
Yeah.
In previous podcasts and in future stuff. Like the crowd could be a bigger deal.
Absolutely.
But you bring the college, like the fact that college game day has a whole sign thing, right? Like it's the thing to go find these signs and to broadcast them on the TV and some of us to find them when we're wink wink just paying too much attention through the screen. But yes, that would be completely great. Would it be on brand for ESPN? I mean, if it's technically spun off from Disney, right? You can say all the penis you want.
Let me throw this out to you. What if, even if we don't see what the sign says, what if we could see very clearly security taking a sign away from a fan behind Kirk Herbstreit?
Yeah, I could be okay with that. I'd definitely be okay with that. I think also if we can continue sort of like the studio show build up, right? Like to what we sort of see, I don't necessarily need like Kevin Negandhi or something on it, but you know what I could use? I could use Lee Corso and Mark May coming back for a little late night court session.
You mean Lou Holtz and Mark May?
Who did I say?
Lee Corso.
Lee Corso can stay on game day. Sure. Lou Holtz can come back and reprise his role as a prosecutor.
Ridiculous.
on the late night version. And you know what?
Which, by the way,
not? Helmet stickers too. Just let's
sure.
Let's just. ESPN's got a bunch of interesting ideas that if we start if we're going to have this integration, let's just completely go.
Yeah, no, I'm with you 100%. Lou Holtz, by the way, inspired the sequel to the penis, 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 penis sign, which was a picture of him and the words penis, 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 penis next to it.
We would not have had that if I had not brought up Lou Holtz, and I think that's why our synergy works so well. Like that.
Yep, absolutely.
So I think this is a very interesting idea, and it makes a lot of sense for EA to be able, because right now what it seems to be that they're doing, that they're in beginning talks to form a stronger relationship,
right?
Which is Disney and EA. And my hope is, and my thinking is, that goes a long way toward trying to build a road toward the eventual end that we're talking about.
All right, I want to end here on a down note a bit.
Nice.
We know Apple is a player for the Big Ten media rights. We assume they are going to be a player for the Pac-12 media rights when they become available. Amazon, I think, has been kicked around as a player for the Big Ten, if I remember correctly. Is there a chance? Those are the other two companies that are reportedly in play right now to form some sort of relationship with EA. I would assume acquire EA. I don't think EA is buying Apple.
Pretty shocker.
Do we worry that sports not being the kind of priority, or I guess college football specifically, not being the kind of priority for Apple that it is for ESPN? Do we worry what the fate of the game may be?
As far as existence?
Yeah. I mean, maybe not cancel the project, but maybe we only get one as opposed to rebooting the franchise.
No, I'd be surprised because it's such a money maker. Like if you were selling like 800,000 copies, maybe.
Yeah.
Right. But we've seen sort of EA go with this, like build an engine for the game and then just ride it for like 6 years.
Sure.
And like just make minor alterations. Like it doesn't have to be an enormous investment every single game you do out there just to rebuild the game. But absolutely, I would not be worried. My worry would be that like we wouldn't see as much innovation with the game, at least maybe early on. Like it may not be a priority to do that. Like with if ESPN/Disney owned it, then I think you would be more inclined to sort of see the innovation with the game to sort of go with what the fans want. If that were the case, I still think we would get the game. I'm not any under any mindset that I think the game would go away. But it's an interesting point that if Amazon, it would be weird, right? Like if Amazon owned EA, because then it's like, I mean, you're getting it just for money. I understand another revenue source, but like we just went over this entire Disney ESPN possible thing. Like it's a square peg being a round hole at this point.
Do you want to end on a fun fact?
Oh, yes. All right. This podcast is going to end on a fun fact.
EA Sports canceled the development of a game for PS4 and Xbox One based on the Miss Universe pageant.
I'm disappointed.
Why is it that we didn't get the game, or that was the fun fact?
I would have played the Miss Universe game once, right?
It's got to be all interview questions, right? Like, what else could you do?
Oh, baton twirl, right? Keep pressing.
I was about to say, are there buttons you press to play classical piano or something? What could the game have been?
You can unlock classic answers. Like from.
I like that.
Right?
Actually, the talent portion just takes you to the old NCAA game. That's how they were going to keep it going. Like, what's your talent? I'm a receiving fullback out of the backfield.
You gotta think how far they had to get down the line, right? Like, all right, so let's play along. We got the Miss Universe game. Now what?
It was from
William Shatner starts as the host, and then one by one, you buy each country's representative.
That's the DLC. Oh, the DLC, skimpier and skimpier bikinis for the swimsuit competition.
That's right. It's to edit more, Photoshop more digitization.
That's right. That's right. The DLC is how comically large can you make your Hooters?
This is good. Miss Brazil, here you go, baby. I get you. Hey, $78 extra for this.
Arky, put in our bid to EA. We will buy the studio only if this project is revived.
I think I'm just buying the project. I think they'll sell it at this point for $78 we offer.
Do you think they'll sell it, or do you think it'll just be, have it. Go knock yourself out. You've got the video game rights to Miss Universe.
Let's see, like they just forward like a Word document that says we own the rights to Miss Universe. Who owns Miss Universe? Is that Donald Trump? Is that is that the universe?
I mean, it was Donald Trump. I would like to imagine in his benevolence as president, he bequeathed it to the universe at this point. And it's up to all of us as tax-paid citizens of the world to keep it going.
Well, I'm in for $1, so I'll put it that way.
Very good. Very good.
All right. So that was a fun episode. I appreciate you guys being aboard on that. Demetri, I think you appreciate the people too, right?
I do.
Oh, good. I like that. We'll be back next week with another fun episode, probably. Who knows? We may bore you. That might be fun too. But until then, obviously find us on all the platforms that Demetri was talking about before. Everywhere podcast, boom. YouTube, right here, boom. If you're digging what we're doing, tell a friend, share it. That's all we really want you to do at this point, because we got requests of you later. That's all.
Yeah, that's right. So just be cool, damn it.
Yeah, that's right. Demetri, until then, say goodbye to the good people.
Save and sim to next week, everybody.